the phrase, God's going to take care of us. Before we started dating, we were writing journals back and forth to each other.
And I think it appeared in the journals first.
Okay.
So do you remember I was at the bowling alley?
Yes.
And you had been away at college that whole week. And before you left for college, we were just friends. And we'd had a conversation about, I think I brought it up. Like, wouldn't this be so cool if we would write journals back and forth to each other? And then the idea went nowhere. And I didn't think about it until that night you walk in. I gave you a big hug because I'd missed you. I hadn't seen you 5 days. And before you left, you handed me a spiral bound journal. And my jaw hit the floor. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe you remembered. And that was one of the nicest things anybody had ever done for me. Like, I don't know that I'd ever felt that cared for before. So those journals meant the world.
Right.
And I think that's where that phrase first appeared.
Yeah. Before I went to college, we were hanging out all the time. And so it was weird to not see each other that long. But then you were diagnosed with cancer. And even before that, I remember you were telling me, hey, I have a prayer request, but you weren't really telling me what it was. And then we found out you had cancer. And at some point in the journals, I took on that phrase.
I used those journals to write Blush. So a lot of our entries are in the book, and the journals help remind me of what was happening, like the timeline, which is so fascinating because there was no texting back then. Like this is before that. So we truly were like writing letters back and forth to each other. But I noticed that phrase appeared very often after I was diagnosed, and you would almost always sign off with it. But then I thought it was cool because you didn't only use it when we were writing about cancer. Like, you were using it about classes in that semester with you, and then other things in life, like normal things almost. You were reminding me, like, oh, God's going to take care of us. And I feel like that's actually flooded into our marriage all these years.
Absolutely.
Because you know, my second cancer, I remember that was so hard on us. But at the end of the day, you reminded us, you're like, God's going to take care of us. And then adoption and job changes and church stuff and family stuff. Like, I feel like we've been through a lot, but that's our compass. It always points us north. I feel like you always remind both of us, like, hey, remember, God's going to take care of us.
Yeah. Different people will read your book and take away different connections, whether it's women, whether it's survivors, whether it's the adoption story. For me, obviously, being a man, maybe being a caregiver. For me, I hope everyone takes away our mantra that we've followed our whole lives, which is God's going to take care of us.